Kazooie says, maybe you could help me deal with my father. Several times now I've told him that Trump does illegal stuff, but he retorts saying that if he was doing illegal stuff, then why hasn't he been arrested yet? And after I retort that he's the one who controls who gets arrested now as president, he calls me brainwashed by the liberal media. I swear I want to strangle him. So, there are a couple methods you can engage in here. As Orla points out, there is the Socratic method, but you have to ask yourself, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to convince him? Because the first thing to recognize is that you can't. I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm not saying that to be defeatist. I'm saying that to point out that you, as an individual, cannot control the thoughts and beliefs of another. And because you cannot control the thoughts and belief of another, you need to instead focus on what you can control. What you can do, if your goal is to just try to get your dad to realize where he's in the wrong, you can use the Socratic method where you ask him, okay, why do you think that's the case? Why do you think that if Donald Trump were doing illegal things, then he would be arrested? Why do you think that's going to happen? Can you name me an example of a president who has done illegal things and was also not arrested? You could bring up the Supreme Court ruling that said that he's not doing illegal things because it's all executive shit. You can bring up the fact that something being illegal and something being immoral are different. Maybe the focus should be not on Trump doing illegal things, but on Trump doing things that are immoral, Trump doing things that are dubious, Trump doing things that are harmful. That's a much harder thing for him to argue against. But ultimately, the problem you're gonna run into, more than anything, is that you cannot control his belief. There is no magic formula. There's none that will change somebody's mind. There are things that make it more likely somebody's mind will be changed. There are things that make it more likely that their mind won't be changed. But you cannot control the thoughts and feelings of another. So if your mental well-being, if your stability, if your happiness is currently hinging on changing the mind of another human being, then you are in a realm of depression that you will and can never escape from. And that is the hardline truth of the matter. Kazooie says, to be fair, this is the same man I watched pay for popcorn and drinks at a movie theater at full price because the combo came with a free movie and he didn't want the free movie. So after putting so much of a stink about not wanting free movie, he just accepted it after they charged him full price for the stuff separately. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and throw the other important bit of information out here. You cannot fix a moron. Somebody whose principles, quote, quote, are such that they will not accept a bettering of their circumstances because they would prefer their circumstances be worse, because they feel like there is some cosmic benefit to their circumstances being worse. You can't fix that person. You can't change that person. You cannot influence that person. You can lead a horse to water. You can't make it drink. All you can do is pick the battles you think are most fruitful and throw the ball into his court more than anything. But what you're describing to me is an individual whose mindset is such that he will not improve his own circumstances and by proxy will not improve the circumstances of people around him merely because he feels like there is, like I said, some cosmic benefit to it. Because that's ultimately what it is. It is somebody thinking that there is some benefit to their actions, such that it outweighs the benefit they are looking at. I wish I could give you better news. I wish I could give you better advice. But the healthiest thing you can do is recognize you can't change his mind. You can't do anything to affect that individual. And not just because he's got a super rigid mindset that is obviously not really prone to helping himself based on the information you've provided, but also just because of the raw fact that there is no world in which you can get into somebody's brain and fix a problem. Not in the way you're describing, not in the way that would be needed. Depraved Andean says, it's noble not to take free stuff. Also, if I had the chance for Trump, I'd gobble Gobbleglizzy, this is not a rational mindset. You cannot rationalize somebody out of a mindset they didn't rationalize themselves into. So, I do not agree with the statement you can't rationalize somebody out of a mindset they didn't rationalize themselves into. I think the more accurate statement is you cannot rationalize somebody out of something. You cannot control that. You can work to convince somebody, you can lead them ultimately to the water where they can drink, but you can't force them to drink. You can't. Jessa, thank you for redeeming a posture check. I appreciate it. And I hope that helps, Kazooie. I know it does not solve your problem, but I think ultimately the most healthy thing that I ever learned in general was that sometimes the problem to be solved was not how can I fix somebody else, but it was how can I manage my expectations? How can I manage my own happiness? How can I manage the way that I respond to these things? Because if I don't focus on how to do that, then all I'm left with is just, well, depression. Oftentimes we have to focus on the things we can control. This is why worrying doesn't help anybody. You can worry about a situation, but that's a useless emotion. No problem ever got fixed. No problem ever was expedited. No problem ever got improved solely on the back of you worrying about it. Worrying is fretting over something you can't control. The healthy thing is taking stock of what you can control. Depraved says it's possible to rationalize somebody out of a position they arrived at rationally because they likely are open to evidence and reason. Because if somebody isn't open to evidence nor reason, you cannot rationalize them out of their positions or mindset. Right, but you understand how that's a different statement. You've substituted person did not rationalize themselves into a position with person is not a rational person. Now, it is true that more people who do not rationalize themselves into positions are also not rational people. But you've made a substitution there. There are otherwise rational people who believe irrational things and did not rationalize themselves into situations. There are mostly irrational people who have certain rational thoughts. Uh-oh, substitution error stack overflow. Like, I didn't rationalize myself into the idea that God exists, but I definitely used rationality to get out of it. All I needed was to no longer be exposed to the stimuli that was reinforcing the belief. You can find that with more people than just me. Depraved Ambulance says, I'm pretty sure that I said you can't rationalize a person out of a mindset they didn't rationalize themselves into. Okay, hold on. So, Depraved Ambience, the previous statement, it's possible to rationalize somebody out of a position they arrived at rationally because they are likely open to evidence and reason. If someone isn't open to evidence or reason, you cannot rationalize them out of the position. So that is where you made a substitution. When the original statement is about positions and arriving at positions and leaving positions based on rationality, but the new statement is about them generally being open to rationality. That's where the difference is, I think. Kazooie says, funnily enough, he also said you'd have to be an R-slur to believe the war in Ukraine would increase gas prices, ignoring supply and demand. And he also said that a bunch of people on January 6th were just people who were walking peacefully into the Capitol, so I'm 100% on him being a moron. He's a moron that listens to too many dumb people. Okay, so Depraved Ambience, do you understand why the statement sounds to me when you say a person is generally irrational? Because that's what that follow-up clarification reads to me. That is a different statement than somebody merely having an irrational belief or engaging in an irrational behavior. Like, those seem like different statements to me. One is an internal statement, whereas one is a statement about an external belief. Either way, though, we're in the pedantic weeds for no reason. I think we largely agree on the premise to a degree. Some people are not open to evidence and reason. The holding a specific position isn't indicative of this, though it could be evidence of it. Right, but the statement as it is commonly said is you can't reason somebody out of a position they didn't reason themselves into. That is not a statement about a person's general acceptance of evidence. That is a statement about belief in a single position. And I think that's where our hang-up is. That said, in regards to your dad, Kazooie, if you have enough evidence to show that your dad is a generally irrational person, then you know that you can't really spend a lot of time trying to get him to become one. If he's gonna become a rational person, that's gonna be a thing that he does on his own, in his own time, and all you can do effectively is your best. But you can't hinge your happiness, you can't hinge your day-to-day, you can't hinge any of that on whether he will make those decisions or whether he will become a more rational person. You can't do that because that's not healthy for you. You have no control over that. And so long as that's something that you truly have no control over, not influence over, we can influence people all day, but we can't control them. If it is something that you truly have no control over, then it's an endeavor that is best abandoned. So long as you have any outcome dependence on it. If you want that to be just a little exercise you do every now and again, just as I'm gonna do some verbal sparring with my dad to see if I make any headway, it's fine. Nobody's gonna fault you for trying to do that. I just don't think it's a healthy thing to be dependent on the outcome of. Depraved Ambient says, some people are not open to evidence, and the reason them holding a specific position isn't indicative of this, though it could be evidence of it. You're right. It's a pithy saying, but incorrect to be fair. It's pithier than saying a person who used emotional reasoning to arrive at a position and engages in identity fusion with that position is unlikely to be reasoned out of that position. I think that's another aspect of something that we don't talk about enough, is how often we've, like, ascribed a part of our identity to those beliefs, and how much harder it is to change those beliefs after we've done so. Like, once you've decided, for one reason or another, that you're hanging your hat on a belief, and that is going to be a core part of you, with, you know, not decided per se, but once that's happened, it's very hard to get you out of that. There's a difference between I have conservative beliefs and I'm a conservative. Once somebody has bitten the bullet on I'm a conservative, it becomes infinitely harder to move them on any issues. I am a conservative. Okay, why are you hanging your hats on your belief that much? It's an aspect of your identity, and that's fair. I'm a socialist. It is an aspect of my identity. It will be harder to move me away from the position of socialism because I label myself a socialist. It is a part of my identity. I think that the people who should own the means of production, largely, are the people who engage in the production of goods. I think the people who should have more say in what happens in the production of goods are the people whose hands bleed making the goods for us all. And I don't think that's an unfair statement, and it's a statement that I've been willing to hang my hat on for years. But I do hope that helped at least a little bit, Kazooie. I know that it's not the advice that most people ever want to hear. Hey, the way you fix this is by not fixing it, because you can't. But I think you're going to be more effective and you're going to be happier if you accept that you can't do anything about that, and instead focus on the things you can do stuff about. Can you change your dad's mind on politics? Maybe not. Can you spend time with your dad to make him more open to your positions in the future? Maybe. Just focus on the things you can control. You'll be more productive for it. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full time without the support from each and every one of you. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie Chan, Kiri Artemis, Limor Pinku, Love Bunny Games, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Aurora, Leela Ururaka, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it just a little bit.